I've always wondered why I used to wait to start a school assignment until the pressure of the last day kicked in, and then I'd be questioning all my life choices and getting jealous of everyone that finished. But I got good scores every time, so what's the big deal? It sounds like it worked for me. Unfortunately, that's how students justify their procrastinating behavior, but it mainly boils down to a lack of academic motivation. I, like all students, have encountered issues with motivation. It seems like that one problem that just can't be fixed. We're all familiar with the millions of inspirational quotes on Google. We can do it, never give up, and my personal favorite, believe in yourself. Well, what is believing in yourself? Where is this motivation coming from, and how can I keep it alive once I've found it? Here's the beautiful, complicated, and hard to admit answer. No student is the same. Some schools wince at hearing that, but it's true. Students all have their own motives for coming to school, completing daily work, engaging in class, and doing more than the minimum effort, at least for some. However, we all share this common struggle of trudging through the school year, only to have another one in line waiting for us. Therefore, I have helpful ways that you and schools can pull their weight to increase the motivation to learn inside and outside the classroom. So to improve the lack of academic motivation that inevitably affects all students, you students should first reflect on yourself to find out your type of motivation and establish if your goals are attainable in the first place. And schools should implement more hands-on activities to increase student engagement. And it would also be beneficial if schools familiarize themselves with their foreign-born students so that they can learn their disadvantages in learning and increase their motivation to learn later on in life. So first of all, you should know the basics about your motivation and how it is potentially harming you rather than helping you. Nobody really likes to reflect on themselves and their flaws, but maybe you'll realize that your motivation isn't good motivation. So let's dig deep into your motivation realm. The three main types of motivation are intrinsic, extrinsic, and amotivation. So if you're like Alex here and you do tasks for your own interest and pleasure, then you are intrinsically motivated. As stated by College Student Journal, intrinsic is present even in low-achieving students. On the other hand, if you're more like Sally and you complete tasks for external rewards, like grades, validation, and wealth, then you are extrinsically motivated. And then the third type is amotivation, which is simply little to no motivation at all. Now, intrinsic and extrinsic aren't necessarily good or bad. It's helpful to have a balance of both, actually. These are affected by competence and self-efficacy, which is your belief in your ability to complete a task at a certain expectation. Now, many factors play into your motivation, and identifying with one of these three would help you understand what exactly is helping you to engage in tasks, and so you can switch your focus if it's unproductive for your goals. So here, I sent out a survey to the school, and 60 students replied, and I asked them what academically motivates them the most. And so you can see over half of them answered that they are extrinsically motivated, which makes sense because students usually work for high grades, a high GPA, which are external rewards. Now, which type of motivation do you think that you would fit with? No shame here. Then there are the different types of learning approaches. Why do you approach a task? Are you doing it to master a skill and improve your knowledge? Patricia Hardray of the Journal of Experimental Education explains that this is the learning goal approach, normally positively associated with your cognitive learning effort, engagement, and outcome. With our examples here, Alex is in the learning goal category. So he chooses rather challenging tasks and perseveres through them, and he puts in more effort than ability. Now, the other positive learning approach is performance approach with Sally. She strives to perform better than her peers, or at least the average expectation. But she's surprisingly intrinsically motivated, and she has a high academic performance. However, the negative learning approach is performance avoidance with John here, where he avoids beginning tasks for fear of failure or doing worse than others. And this includes little studying, unwillingness to seek help because you may appear unintelligent, and an overall poor academic performance. So here are some modern motivational theories. And these all help determine how little or highly motivated you are. Now, you may be familiar with attribution and goal orientation. These theories are more complex than a simple "can I do it?" Now, Washington State University explains that the attribution theory depends on the results that you receive from a task. So if you're successful at something, then you're most likely going to attribute that success to external causes, such as luck. But if you fail at something, then you're going to attribute it to your internal causes, such as your level of intelligence. So what does this tell us? It means that whatever you are attributing your results to, this will determine your motivation later on. So if you constantly believe that you're failing classes and tasks simply because you cannot learn the material or because of your level of intelligence, then you're going to be stuck and not motivated to learn or succeed. So simply put, if you start attributing your success and your failure to your own effort and motivation, then you may change your approaches to tasks, therefore increasing your motivation to learn. And if you know that it's a controllable situation, then you're likely to put forth more effort into learning and finishing that bothersome homework assignment. Furthermore, American psychologist Bernard Weiner suggests that you'll be more successful if you place high importance on your task. So what are you waiting for? Value your every task despite the pointlessness that it may have, because you may just have more motivation to complete it and get it over with if you know that it'll contribute to your success. So you see, even the interactions between yourself and your peers and your learning material impact your motivation to learn, such as the social cognitive theory. So if you have strong bonds with your teachers and peers, then you're more likely going to be motivated to succeed. Now, if you find yourself relating to ineffective motivation techniques and concepts, then there is always room for improvement. Even these seemingly perfect types of motivation and situations are not foolproof, so you just need to find what fits your needs and potential. Moving on, the second solution to fixing the lack of academic motivation is having attainable goals and confidence that you can achieve those goals. Now, some people, luckily enough, are dead set on their future careers, houses, spouses, children, pets, and more. But what about the rest of us? Think about an assignment, project, or even a big life goal that you have. Visualize it in your mind with all of its scariness, especially that deadline. Then ask yourself the million-dollar question. Do you feel competent enough to complete this task or achieve this goal? Now, I'm not saying that you can never dream big and become something cool like a doctor, but unless that you believe you can do it, then you'll never be satisfied, even if you are successful. Here, behavioral psychologist Scott Geller explains that you can motivate others by giving feedback and recognition of their efforts so that they know someone out there sees them putting in every ounce of their effort. And as Geller once said, be a success seeker rather than a failure avoider. Instead of feeling controlled by your goals and tasks, perceive the choices that you have and make. You may realize how fortunate you are to be studying and working toward becoming whatever career you dream of. Perspective changes everything. Additionally, is this task or goal worth it? Is it worth the consequences? After all, these are the biggest part of your motivation. What do medical students spend a decade in school to experience? The thousands of dollars of debt, that is. No, it's truly the career that they have spent years chasing after. Now consider the consequences that you wish for and if they are worth the pursuit. Now finally ask yourself if you have a sense of belonging in your community. If you feel affiliated and connected with your peers, then you're subsequently going to feel more motivated to complete tasks than those who aren't. Now you don't have to go out and befriend all the Walmart workers and neighbors, but you can start small with simple gestures that positively impact your attitude, such as greeting your peers and striking up small talk. You never know what will come of it if you never try. On a related note, Geller mentions that our modern independence culture we have should change to interdependence so that we can help and motivate each other instead of only acting for our own benefits and advantages. We are social creatures and require approval, support, and connections. Now, we're raised to be independent, and teenagers are notoriously known for craving that independence, but working together will provide better motivation and reason to live our lives and accomplish goals. Lastly, schools can fix the lack of academic motivation by providing more hands-on activities and further assistance to native-born students. Now, regarding applied learning activities, these are helpful for every student regardless of education level. It's not just elementary students that need hands-on activities. According to Neil Trollian of the Journal of Experimental Education, college students especially tend to lose motivation throughout their schooling. And many students here are going to college after high school. So this type of teaching and learning experience would encourage them to engage in class and put in more effort to learn. Applied learning experiences can be implemented inside and outside the classroom, such as situations requiring theories and concepts to be applied, using exams and classwork to address problems, engaging in research with a faculty member, and assigning tasks or social experiments to do in everyday life so that the lesson will drive home. So here's some student feedback from my survey, and I asked them how motivated are they to complete schoolwork at school, and on a scale of 1 to 5. So 1 is no motivation, 5 is full motivation. So most of them answered 3 and 4 because they felt that school was either a good environment for learning and completing their tasks, and some felt that they were more productive at home. So it really just depends. Now, a question that teachers frequently hear is, what's the point of this assignment? And applied learning activities would help answer this question. Even if the exact material isn't relevant, like finding the area of a rhombus, the steps and skills involved are crucial, and these numbers on the chart would bump up to 4 and 5s because they would be more engaged in class. Now, on the other hand, I asked these students, how motivated are they to complete schoolwork at home on the same scale? So most of them answered 2 and 3, which is on the lower end. And this makes sense because most of them said that they're busy outside of school. They have jobs, sports, and clubs they're involved in, so they don't have time to complete work at home. Now, moreover, Shalini Sahu of Adult Learning mentions that foreign-born students can naturally face disadvantages in learning due to factors such as lower educational attainment, which is the highest educational level that you can achieve, literacy skills, culturally appropriate learning opportunities, and just unfamiliarity with our learning society and learning culture. However, foreign-born students' benefits of higher educational attainment are usually greater than those among U.S.-born students. So schools should consider the educational backgrounds and basic skills of their students to increase their motivation to learn for all populations. Providing basic skill training and education programs to native-born students yields a higher chance of prolonging their motivation to learn in their middle-aged years. They can then experience the benefits of greater motivation to learn, such as employment, retirement, health, and social participation later in life. It would take more time and money for schools, but if they assist foreign-born students to familiarize themselves with our learning culture, it will be extremely beneficial, and some would even say it's the bare minimum of helping foreign-born students. Now, interestingly enough, to achieve high attendance rates, Issues and Controversies says that some schools have implemented incentives for students to show up if they have a truancy problem with their student attendance. Now, instead of punishments for poor attendance, schools have found that it's more effective to reward students for being present. Now, supporters of this incentive issue argue that you need to be present at school in the first place to learn, but opponents argue that the incentives here are only bribing them to arrive at school and not motivating them to learn. And yes, and truancy levels have shown to decrease in schools where incentives were established. So it can be successful at bringing more students to school, just not motivating them to learn. So directly tackling the cause of truancy would work as well, but that can be complicated by financial and time limitations. Schools have to remember that grades and test scores aren't a full representation of your academic motivation, which is occasionally overlooked. The highest performing student may have the lowest academic motivation to succeed and vice versa. So getting an inside look at each teacher and their classroom would be the best way to determine what steps to take and how to motivate student activity. Were you motivated to listen to this whole spiel? I sure hope so, but that's all right because now you may know the possible reason why. If you're a student struggling with academic motivation, that is very understandable and should not be ignored. It's not just a simple approach to learning or what types of goals you establish, but hopefully this knowledge will broaden your insight and help you understand that motivation to learn is different for everyone. Overall, I'm glad to have informed you about the psychological basis of motivation. So know your motivation, introspective takes on motivation, eyes on the prize, and establishing attainable goals, and especially what schools can do to boost student motivation to not only learn, but engage in class and have a more enjoyable experience while learning. Now you can think of motivation not as something that you can't acquire, because you can, only if you are willing to reflect and help yourself. If we all work to encourage each other and improve our motivations, we'd get a lot more done around here, don't you think? Thank you.